Safi Russell here from SDR Consulting, Inc., and welcome to Business Basics Friday. We had some technical issues with Facebook today and Zoom, but had to make it work and improv by having my phone share the screen. So just to start out officially, Business Basics Friday is a session that we do every Friday just to provide some value to small business owners, whether it be from business formation or the list of all the fun stuff in between or tax preparation. And so a little background about myself. I am Safi Russell from SDR Consulting, Inc., CEO and founder. My firm is based here in New York, but we have a virtual practice. So we do work with clients all over. And I have a background as a CPA and enrolled agent. And business owners from formation all the way through to tax preparation and all that fun stuff in between. So that's a bit about my background. Today we have guest speaker George Dandridge to give us a topic of making important data-driven decisions, not just by emotion. So George, the floor is yours. Go ahead and get started.
Hey everybody, thank you Safi for allowing me.
George, I think you got muted.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. And president of Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services, virtual practice providing support to business owners from startup all the way through the selling process. Today, we wanted to talk to you guys about making data-driven decisions. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples because a lot of times you follow your passion into business, and that passion can lead you to be emotional at times and make purchases and have expenses or take on new services and things of that nature that's not necessarily conducive with where you're at in business. So we're going to talk about how you make those decisions, the best practices to making those decisions, and where you extract the data from in order to make those types of decisions. So imagine, if you would, I'm going to tell my age here, but imagine you got in a car and you knew a general direction of where you were going or whatever, and you figured you'd get in the area and you'd ask directions. Once you ask directions, somebody tells you go here, go there. That was the old way of getting around. Now you have GPS. Have you ever put an address in the GPS and you're following the directions and then it says you arrived, and you look around like, yeah, no, this cannot be it. And hopefully you're not trying to get to an appointment, because now you have to scramble to figure out where you actually need to be, because clearly you're not there or what have you. And it's because oftentimes the wrong data was entered into the GPS. It could be something as technical as an east or a west before the street, a drive versus an avenue, etc. But these types of things is what happens. So let's look at the data in your business. Every book tells a story. The question for you is, what story does your books tell? Your books of your business, the data of your sales, expenses, profit and loss, balance sheet. What story is that telling about you and your business and how your business functions? If you think back to around April or May of 2020, when we were kind of like in the shutdown and the government started issuing funds, one of the requirements was that you provided your profit and loss statement along with your last tax return, et cetera. And for those of us in our industry, in the tax industry or the accounting industry, we were inundated with new prospects, but they were unrealistic. They wanted to try to get a year or two of their books put together in a week or less, and it just wasn't a realistic feat. And this is one of those things where, while the waters are still and it's calm, you set the sails so when the wind blows, you catch the momentum. Oftentimes what will happen is people will say, well, I'll hire an accountant when I start making a profit, when I'm profitable. And the reality is oftentimes if you put that priority first, what'll happen is you'll save a lot of money, number one. Most good accountants will pay for themselves just in the money they save you by stopping you from making bad decisions and or improving your cash flow through little technical tools that we use throughout the industry that applies to almost any other industry. No matter how unique your business is, there's an absolute function that happens that's consistent across all businesses. So consider, if you would, what data you have if you've already been in business, let's say 1 year. And in that 1 year's time, from startup through the course of that first year, you kept account of just the bare minimum, your sales and expenses. That is enough data by itself to give you some kind of indication of when your peaks and your valleys will come in the coming year, in theory anyway. But imagine if you really got fine-tuned with that thing. If you got to the point where on any given day, you're making notes about events that are going on in or around your business, the weather impacts, if there's a storm or something, any types of things that would impact your business. And okay, on this day, I did these numbers, and here are some of the external factors with those numbers. If you have those little notes with that in the coming year, when it's time to do projections, when it's time to staff, etc., you can kind of base some things on that. If you had a slow day and you did $500 or $600 on a storefront location, but it was storming that day, well, here's an opportunity to pick up your increases. And this is what this is really all about, is identifying the opportunities for increase. Imagine having 20, 25, or 40% growth year over year over year. Large corporations would do a backflip to get those type of numbers. It's easier when you're a smaller business, but if you can get those type of numbers, in large quantities or whatever, when you're doing millions, then you look like a superstar. But here's how you condition your team. You look for those opportunities where you had slow days the year prior, or you had things that had an adverse effect on the flow of your business the year prior, and you take advantage of those opportunities to capitalize and do more on the slower days, not just hope that the busier days will match themselves in the next year, but be prepared for them to match themselves in the next year. I'm gonna make a U-turn because I feel like I might have left somebody. So with all that you have going on, if you're a business owner, you're probably the president, CEO, janitor, marketer, etc. This is one of those things that you can take off your plate by hiring a bookkeeper or a CPA or accountant, because in doing so, you're able to focus on operations, and they're able to present you with data that shows you, okay, well, you spent this money on this campaign. And this is where I see this a lot. You guys will see something on social media or a new product, and understand everybody is selling. So you see something that you think may be great for your business, and it very well may be, but it may not be the time to actually purchase that thing or what have you. So you want to start to be able to set money aside for these type of add-ons in your business, whether it's a piece of equipment, a piece of software, bringing in a new staff person or outside team person that can contribute to your organization. You have to be able to identify those needs and then prepare for those needs. Don't just jump off the porch and decide to make that purchase or spend those funds without any evidence that this is actually going to work for you. And we often see it a lot of times in marketing. The worst type of success that you can have, or the worst type of failure you can have, is actually success that you're not prepared for. And I've seen this in some larger organizations where they tried something and it worked and it's phenomenal. Think back to the Popeyes chicken sandwich craze, right? Popeyes had been carrying the chicken sandwich for umpteen years. They kind of changed up the marketing and whatnot. And the next thing you know, everybody's going crazy for it. But here was the problem for Popeyes. They were not prepared for that level of success. So location after location across the country, they were running out of chicken sandwiches. They were creating a bad customer experience. And at the end of the day, the brand was strong enough and had been around long enough that they could sustain that type of a negative hit, to the brand. But imagine, if you would, they were a much smaller regional chicken chain or even a local within a city. That could have very well crushed their business. So they did the data to determine, hey, here's a great marketing strategy, but they didn't look at the other necessary data to put the logistics in place to make sure they had adequate supplies, adequate staff, et cetera, so they could take that influx. So I'm going to pause right here to see if anybody had any questions or whatever.
Yeah, that's so key. And I chuckled a little bit about the Popeyes because I've seen other companies, similar process where they, have a great marketing campaign, and then here comes the influx of new clients, and then there's no customer support. And so it is important. I know people talk about scaling, and really trying to grow, but at the right pace. I think that's the key. And by knowing your numbers, by knowing your analytics, it can definitely help you do that. And so I think that was a great point you mentioned about not waiting until your business is big, but starting right from the beginning. I know you deal a lot with finances, George. If you want to give a little background about, you as an enrolled agent and some of the finance work that you do in addition to accounting and bookkeeping, because a lot of times accounting, depending, taxes, for example, is kind of after the fact. Bookkeeping, if you're just kind of cleaning up once a year, it's after the fact. But what can you recommend during the year for people to, what, I guess, key factors they can look at in their data to make those type of decisions based on what you've seen?
Well, one of the things that I've seen kind of fall off at the wayside that we really need to get back to for startups is a business plan. I think the reason people got away from that is because the trying to come up with these numbers that don't already exist was just daunting to the average person. And what they didn't understand is this is the projections, hope for, the market, analysis, et cetera, feasibility studies and such. But that plan is very, very flexible. It's after that first year where you've had some sales or whatever, no matter how slow or how busy, it gives you the information. And, early on, that information is kind of week to week, day to day, like you may be busy at a certain time of day. Past that point, though, as you sit at the top of that organization, you have to allow frontline managers to deal with that day-to-day part. You have to be able to cast out, and like case in point right now, if you are not strategizing for the second quarter of 2022, you're behind the curveball. That's where you should be as far as really making data-driven decisions if you're past your your sophomore year in business, which is an amazing feat in and of itself, because most businesses fail within those first 2 years. And what I find is, even though it's often blamed on lack of capital, what I often find is more than capital, it was the lack of a plan and the inability to put systems in place. Documentation beats conversation. As you go along your journey, you may not, there is no way in advance of opening your doors that you can prepare for every type of nuance. But as they happen, and as you go through them, you document that thing, and you document that thing so that you can have a formal procedure for dealing with those type of issues when they come up, or better yet, avoiding them. Find a process that avoids how we got to this place. Because at the end of the day, regardless of your business, whether it's product, service, etc., we live in a very experienced society. Everybody wants this experience when they deal with you. So if you are selling food and they bite into it and it's not fresh and everything, that's not a great experience. So these are the type of things you have to kind of keep in mind. The other things I see in finances that's often misunderstood is, and this will cripple your business. Okay, get your pen and paper out. Get ready for this one. This happens way too often. You've already put off getting an accountant until you're profitable, right? And then here's what happens. All of a sudden, you figured out the marketing, you figured out the delivery, and the money is flowing in. And now you're spending a good deal of that money back into the business and whatnot with no particular idea of the return. And to what you said earlier, Safi, taxes are an afterthought. And so then what happens is you've been in business 2 years, you didn't have any taxable income from your business, you wrote everything off with the kitchen sink or whatever, and now you file your taxes and you have a tax liability. And you're like, oh my God, I just spent that money on some new equipment, some new software, a new marketing campaign, whatever the case may be, right? So now you're facing penalties or whatever for late payments on this. Then it gets worse. You learn about estimated tax payments. So now I have this payment due for past tax liability. I'm no longer a W-2 employee, so I have this estimated tax. Now, all of this is due on April 15th right now, and I just blew my profits, and I thought I was doing the right thing because I invested it back in my business, but I didn't consult an accountant. I didn't consult a bookkeeper. I didn't consult a tax professional. And so now I have this burden. Then it gets worse. They decide, well, what I'll do is, to get caught up, I won't send in the payroll tax. I'll use that money to get caught up and kind of float me because business is going great. I can get caught up pretty easy. Then all of a sudden, you're not the hot new thing anymore. Business kind of slows down and peaks off. You still have a tax liability. You still need to pay estimated taxes. And now you've committed the worst tax crime ever, is that you didn't issue the trust fund payroll taxes over. Uh-oh. Now this is when you have to call Safi and myself, and then you find out that it was way cheaper to call us in advance than it is now, because now you have a problem. Problems cost money. If your business is one of those, if you're looking at your price model, know this. If you solve a problem, money will come. Well, we solve the most stressful problem there is. We get rid of the IRS on your behalf. Now, that doesn't mean we make the money go away all the time. You still got to pay it, but we take that pressure off of you. So this is why early on, I would say even before you open, consult with an accountant. Even if you're not hiring them at the time, pay for a consultation and find out some of the basics you need to know. Find out what are some plugs, hacks, etc., that you can use to carry you over until you're ready to bring them on full time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that cycle is difficult to get out from, but you definitely need professional help, and it is more cost effective to just do it right in the first place. Learn what you need to learn. The business plan is skipped over a lot. The bookkeeping setup is skipped over a lot. Then you have the commingling of funds and so on. So we found that craze happen around the PPP and EIDL timeframe because people were just, building their business, which is understandable. And there was no one to watch the finances, make sure the systems are in place, understand if you have a profit or not. Then we would know whether you're eligible for some of those options that came about. So at the end of the day, the data is in your numbers, the data is in your systems, right? The data is in your planning. And without having that in place, you're just going off, off the cuff. You're just, like George said, going by emotion. Oh, I think I like this idea, or I feel like I need some help, but can you afford the help? And when you start getting into those tax and penalties adding up, it is going to cost you more. So I think it's definitely vital to start fresh from the beginning, know your numbers, know your data, so you can make the right decisions for your business, and know whether it's time to, grow, stay where you are, or, downsize even. If you're starting to, have a loss year after year, something's not working. You want to stop the bleeding and kind of look at those numbers and data and figure out what that is. So, I know George is very qualified in that area as far as finances and accounting and tax as well, and also with tax resolution, helping clients get out of their mess. So I don't see any questions at the moment, but we'll wait another, couple seconds. But George, if you can just, share, a little bit about your background and then your company and how people can get in touch with you, that'd be great.
I will, but I left something off I wanted to get into when you were talking about that. The data is always there. It's a question of how do I extract the data, and then how do I apply the information to a plan? Because if your plan is coming from your head and it's just, I plan to do this or I plan to do that, and it's not relative to the data in front of you, it's not really a plan. It's some type of a crazy dream or whatever. But the data is in front of you. You have to either learn to extract it or have someone extract it for you. And most accountants will offer you this in a consultation, where if you've done the books and you're looking at another decision, they can look at your cash flow. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. This is where people really, really struggle. They take their past relationships with money into their business and they miss the boat. So a little bit about me. It was a funny thing, Facebook has their memories, right? So a memory came up from early 2010, where I put a post out. I had a restaurant at the time, in an entertainment business. The restaurant was with myself and my mother. And there was just something that came up despite my business acumen that I just didn't quite know how to do. And so I made a post, were there any accountants on my timeline or my news feed or whatever? And I got a couple of people to respond, but the long and short of it is I found myself in the cycle. So when I tell you this happens, I'm telling you from a very experienced place. And because I could not readily find the answer, I became the answer. So that is how my company, or this particular brand of my company, was actually formed. And I immersed myself into getting the information to support things that I instinctively knew or felt. I learned how to get the data to support that. And then I felt really, really compelled to share that with other business owners, because entrepreneurs are a special breed. We just function different. And so oftentimes there's not a lot of support. When we look at where we've come from and so forth and so on, there's not a lot of people normally in your circle that you can have certain conversations with. They'll buy from you, they'll share your brand, but when you're talking about something next level, you usually are kind of leaving them behind. And so I wanted to create support businesses that we can take care of the stuff that you may not necessarily be great at, but that every business needs. So we do offer everything from formation to credit card processing, short-term funding. We even have one of my favorite products is if you have a high ticket item, whether it's a product or a service, you're a contractor or a coach, and you've garnered interest in your business, or you have clients that are prospects that just can't quite afford to pay you. One of the things, and this goes back to those data-driven decisions, I found a lot of businesses having to close their doors because they were self-financing their receivables. You know, stop that. That's something we can help you with. We can have your clients take on their own financing and be able to pay you for your services, because you can have the greatest product or service available. If you don't have proper cash flow, your air supply is choked off. You know, you can't do what you need to do because whoever your vendors, suppliers, employees, etc. are, you can't afford to keep up, and you start to stress out and take that pressure on because you were trying to take on this business. So it's nothing wrong with your price model. You just have to transition or transfer the burden of those receivables and keep your cash flow going.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And your company name is?
Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services.
Perfect. Perfect. And how can people find you online?
You can find me online at elite8financial.com is our website. You can also follow our YouTube channel, Elite 8 Financial Boss Talk Radio, which is our podcast that brings people from across different industries to talk about that entrepreneur journey, because it's not the glamour that social media would have you believe it is. And you could also reach out to us at 866-2-ELITE-8. It's 866-235-4838.
Perfect. Oh, I like that with the phone number. I got to look into that. Perfect. So yeah, that was great information, George. And I know that your experience, your personal experience, and now bringing that into your business is definitely going to help you see, and feel where people are, but, show them how to turn around just like you did. So that's a great story. And so I don't have any questions that I see here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and wrap up. I'm going to just share my outro as well. And I want to thank whoever joined us here on Facebook or Clubhouse. Thanks for the patience and the technology issues today. I had to turn my phone around and show my computer to make it work, but we got it done at the end of the day. And so once again, Safi Russell, SDR Consulting, Inc. And, we help business owners from business formation all the way through to tax preparation and all that fun stuff in between. And George, it's been a pleasure having you today. Thanks again. And stay tuned to next Friday at 12 Eastern. We'll be back with another session. So feel free to spread the word. We'll be on Facebook Live, technology permitting, and Clubhouse as well. And a podcast series is actually launching right now as well. So I will be sharing that information in the future. Thank you, George, for your encouragement on that. Yes.
I love it.
All right. Everyone have a great day and stay safe. Thanks again, George.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Bye-bye.